good afternoon. I'm Shital Shah, as Carol just noted, and really excited to be here to talk about AI, the use of ethical AI and assessments. And so we pulled together an amazing panel focusing on K-12 and the higher ed community, as well as a really strong collaborator with the administration, as well as other communities in the tech field. And so I'd love for my amazing panelists to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start to my right, and we can make a circle.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gina Fratarcangeli. I'm a managing director at Google, and we're doing incredible things in the AI space and having so much fun doing that. So excited to talk with you all today and share some of those developments and how we think we can impact education.
David?
Good afternoon. My name is David Miyashiro, Superintendent of the Cajon Valley School District. I'm so glad that James shared his story. I am half Japanese and half Korean, and growing up with two sides of the family that don't like each other literally helped us develop our approach in Cajon Valley, which has 40 languages spoken in a 65-mile square radius in a small community. We have a person-specific approach to equity, inclusion, and belonging. It means we don't assume based on last name or based on appearance. We take time to know each child's story, and that's part of our journey.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Javaune Adams-Gaston. I'm the president of Norfolk State University, which is in Norfolk, Virginia. We are an HBCU, historically black college university. Yes, yes. And so I am so excited to talk about some of the things that we will get to explore today because, in fact, HBCUs are overperforming in bringing individuals who are excellent to your organizations. So we'll talk about a little bit of that.
Hi, everybody. What a great crowd, really. Very impressive. I was like the one earlier, and I'm like, this is a little nerve-wracking. So thank you for inviting me. My name is Dr. Denise Lujan, and I am from the University of Texas at El Paso. I am a first-generation, low-income, Pell-eligible student who my father was a cotton farmer, so I literally have hoed cotton and moved pipe many years, right? I oversee a department that's called the Entering Student Experience, which means I work with almost every student that enters UTEP. It includes our first-year seminar course. It includes developmental math, developmental English, learning communities, peer mentors, summer bridges, anything that we can do to any program that we can set up to help our entering students. I oversee that.
Great, thank you all. And before we dive into the first question, I just wanted to share a little bit also about what my teammates here have brought up in terms of access and equity. So the Department of Education, in addition to what you're going to learn that we're doing around AI, we're also supporting student loan forgiveness, affordability, through a SAVE program with income debt repayment, as well as, yeah, let's hear it. And we're doing that in partnership, right? Let's radically collaborate. And so there's a bunch of national organizations we're working with, as well as digital equity. And you heard DeAndre speak about the digital equity work, and they're one of our collaborators where we're focusing on the Affordable Connectivity Program and are really trying to get families and caregivers and students and everyone access. So we're working with ISPs across the country as well. So I know we're talking about AI, but those are things your communities, I know, can benefit from, and so just want to put it out there. So diving into AI. First question, what are some of the greatest boundaries and barriers you experience in the leadership roles that you're currently playing with the populations you served? And some of you touched on it a little. We'll start with you.
I think for myself, it really is ensuring that others on campus know what we do, why we do it, and the impact of it. My unit oversees about 6,000 students a year, and this fall we have 4,700. They're not counted anywhere because we serve all majors, so they're not in a college, and our students are counted in their college. So getting others around campus to know what we do and the impact of what we do is part of one of my biggest jobs, so that they can see that we are helping our students. I also serve underprepared students, and at UTEP we found that if you have if you're placed into developmental math, if you fail that course your first semester, there's a 98% chance you won't be here the next semester. So it is crucial to serve this student population in the right manner. And that means that content is one aspect of it, but working with them in a holistic way, ensuring that we help them identify their barriers and help them solve those barriers, and helping them feel like they belong. Underprepared students are my passion. I've been in higher ed for 25 years, all of those years working with underprepared students. I believe absolutely that every underprepared student can be successful in college if they're given the right support. So finding that right support, reaching the students where they are, and building those relationships is very critical. And then sharing that with everyone around campus so that they know the impact of what we do. That's probably one of my biggest barriers.
Thank you.
So what I think about, when I think about barriers, I think about the things that we get to do and how we change the narrative. So Norfolk State University is a very successful university. We're the largest HBCU. There are 5 of them in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we have extremely bright and talented students. And we have a high percentage of students, almost 70%, who are Pell eligible. And you heard earlier this morning, UVA, and Jim Ryan is a great friend of mine. I love him very much. But they're 17% with an endowment that is out of this world. And so it's not numbers, it's your percentage of students who are really in tough situations and need funding. You add to that, we have 92% of our students who need some type of financial aid. So that's almost everybody. And the barriers are really about historic underfunding by the state. And it has been an ongoing issue. We are doing better now, thankfully. But, you know, all those years of these institutions and this institution in particular being underfunded has meant that there are so many ways that we have to make up. So we're always in the hunt with the legislators, with the state, but also with funders across the country. You know, we're looking for support for these students who are incredibly talented and will be major leaders given the opportunity to complete their degrees. So for me, I'm always thinking about how we can do better. I have the opportunity to serve on President Biden's advisory on HBCUs. And we just finished a study that we have presented to the president and the vice president. And it was a great, great meeting. You know, sometimes you don't know how those things are going to go, but it was really impactful. But what I will say, because the report's not out yet, what I will say is we have some opportunities. We all can make this work better for the betterment of our country and the world. And I just remind people that HBCUs are 3% of higher education, but they produce 80% of judges, 40% of STEM, 60% of lawyers. I mean, it just goes on and on. So we're overproducing all the time to the betterment of our entire community. So I think we have some opportunities. The barriers are, you know, trying to do everything in order to make sure our students have access, affordability, and success. And I tell our faculty and I tell our entire community, our number one thing that we're doing is ensuring student success for each student.
Thank you. And really quick, David, one little fact is most students who drop out of a 2 or 4 year, it's because of less than $1,000. And you know, there are many great folks who are helping support these basic needs, whether it's childcare or emergency health care, but it's such a small amount and they're leaving with such a huge debt burden as well. So thank you for sharing.
I love that you used the word barrier and opportunity in the same sentence. So barriers. 10 years ago, I was at a conference, and Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, was a speaker, and he was announcing that he was going to give some insane amount of money of his wealth, $100 million towards education. I was excited. And then he said it's for this charter school organization called Rocket Ship Schools, which is actually a great school system. And I asked Reed, how about public education? He said, what's your role? I said, superintendent. He said, 2 reasons I'll never fund public schools, school boards, and teachers' unions. And then his handler carted him off before I could grab him. But he was right and he was wrong. When you have organized labor that's connected with a vision of improving the outcomes from young people and a visionary school board, and I'm here with the board president, Jim Miller, is with me from the school board, testament right there, you can do anything. And so what are the barriers? The barriers are, one, humans, and the system itself. And I won't complain about the federal government here. Let's just talk about California. So California measures proficiency in language arts, math, science, high school graduation rate, which are all great things. But do those things translate to gainful employment? Over the last 10 years, we've invested in conversations with our city, with the military, and with our families about what they want for their children. And it articulates in a vision for our school district. Our vision is happy kids engaged in healthy relationships on a path to gainful employment. That's above the dais. Happy kids, kids that are self-aware, have self-love and self-esteem, healthy relationships. Every child feels a deep sense of belonging because every child knows every child's story deeply and well, and the adults as well, and path to gainful employment. Starting in kindergarten, we created a curriculum called the World of Work that builds and measures kids' vocational identity. So by the time they reach 8th grade, high school is intentional. And partnerships with business and industry are easy when they know that the talent pipeline is coming to them.
So as I think about it, we've heard so many amazing thoughts today and so much amazing work out there in this space. As I think about barriers, you've heard it today said many times, access. I think there's two things though. It's access and awareness. And as we think about the access to it, I view AI, Google views AI as the opportunity to give so much more access to people. I spend my days talking to boards who are asking me the question, what is AI? And it reminds me back in I'll date myself here, but in 1995 when I was talking to companies and going to boards when they were saying, what is the internet? So we're at that kind of a pivotal point, and I think all of us in the room, some of us older than others, me being on the old side, talking to my peer group, we need to recognize that AI is going to be that transformative to our society in the way that the internet was back in 1995. So what does that mean as us who support the education community and help in that space? We have to go learn it. We have to spend the time doing it. And I view AI as the absolute level setting place to give so many more people access to information. If you think about AI, is the benefit of AI, your human brain can only process so much data. Computers can process infinite amount of data. So there were comments before about data versus insights, and that's so relevant because what AI will now allow you to do as educators, as business people, as humans in society is have access to insights from infinite amounts of data. And so if you're asking yourself the challenging questions, if I had more access to data, more access to information, how could I think about better serving my communities and better delivering solutions to the people that I serve? And now it's out there and aware for you. So as you start exploring, I encourage people to take down their own barriers to it, right? Get out there and start playing with it. There's amazing tools out there, and there's amazing amazing ways to learn. And there's amazing free content in how to do that. If you just start typing into the different AI tools, right? How can I write my coursework? How can AI help me develop my coursework? There's lots of different companies out there who are offering those tools to you. Harvard has online education that over 5 million people, I think, have signed up for it. UT Austin has a $10,000 AI master's program that you can do online. So there's tremendous opportunities to use AI to start advancing how you think about your work, your life, your ability to educate, how you think about education, and as students, how they do and have the access to that. So lots more to talk about on the access side, too.
Great, thank you. So I know I said we were going to potentially skip a question, but I actually want to learn a little bit more about you all, which you've already shared with me, but I want our audience to learn. What are your personal obstacles in the roles that you play? So you've talked and shared a little bit about the obstacles and boundaries in the roles, but personally, is there anything you'd like to share that's impacted the way you're also doing your work? And feel free to pass, totally fine.
Do you want to start?
For me, it's very relatable to the first barrier that I said. My unit, it reports to the provost office, so it is considered a student success program. Personally, what that means is that I'm left out of the academic table for the conversations. We have over 200 sections we've scheduled. We are all about content and curriculum and pedagogy. Personally, though, I'm not at the table with the deans, having the conversation of the impact of our students leaving our program to them. What are the issues? How do I solve them? What's working? For me, that is really critical, and I keep raising my hand saying, I need to be at that meeting, I need to be at that meeting, and it's just not there yet. And the other thing that happens because of that is that those in the colleges view us as service, and they don't see the academic aspect of what we do in the course and pedagogy, curriculum, faculty. It's really, that's one of my biggest.
I would say personally, and for, who are presidents in this room, presidents of universities? We haven't, yes, okay, so, all right. So you know that the issue is being everywhere all the time and ensuring that you are getting the information about the institution to the forefront of the minds of folks, both in government, but also in private industry, in corporations, all of those things, because it makes a big difference. So one of the things that happened for my institution that was really a game changer is we were one of the recipients of the Mackenzie Scott gift of $40 million unrestricted. That changed the trajectory of the institution. What it did is brought other money to us. It allowed us to talk about the things we were able to do because of that gift. But it means that as the president, you are sort of expressing that everywhere. So you're, pivoting externally and making sure you're getting support, you're looking for opportunities, and you have to be very focused internally to the institution, because the faculty need you, the staff need you, and most importantly, the students want to be engaged with you. So it's the sheer amount of refocusing and making sure we're getting things done that wears on you. But I will tell you, it also gives you energy.
Thank you.
If Mackenzie has any leftover cash, please send her our way. Well, I was talking about this with DeAndre earlier. He is former superintendent. I thought, what's it like to be a former superintendent? I'm not looking to leave, boss. But one of the things that's personally challenging, I think, in my role, in our seat as board president and superintendent, are the politics that have invaded our schoolrooms and our school boards, our school board meetings, that have nothing to do with the children or the community that we're actually serving, more on political ideologies. So that work is hard, but it just takes resilience. I would say that When you have a vision like happy kids and healthy relationships on a path to gainful employment, that transcends political boundaries. No person, regardless of party or ethnicity or religion, doesn't want their child to be happy, to have friendships, to be known and valued at school, to start building a life for themselves, and to have their own version of the American dream, which I've learned is different from family to family. We don't assume that every child wants this. We take the time to ask and get to know. So relationships and taking time to ask good questions is how we're overcoming that.
Beautiful. Really nicely said. I'm obviously in a different space than my colleagues here, so working in a tech company, I'm sure not everyone else seeing, right? Our environment is very siloed. So there's amazing, brilliant people doing things over here and amazing, brilliant people doing things over here. I'm being facetious. I know we all work in probably siloed environments. But the challenge is really bringing those ideas together and bringing those people together and hearing and understanding their problems that are ubiquitous across many of those environments and how can we help solve that, right? Like, for instance, I know there was some talk today already just about internet access, and Google feels, well, we get, the Chromebooks out to the students, and that's great. Well, it's great unless they don't have internet access to be able to get the information. So how do we start thinking about we can leverage our technology, and can we start getting so good at compression of data and information that we can actually have the Chromebooks loaded with the content that the students need. So if they don't have internet access, they can still be successful. So just thinking differently about it. The other challenge for me is there's so much information happening right now in the AI space, and people are constantly asking me, how do I even begin to learn? One, got a whole recommended list of easy entry AI for dummies kind of entry points to help, and I'm happy to share that with people. But getting out there and just digesting the information, and then I challenge you all as leaders in your space to get out there and become kind of information and content curators. Look at all the information out there and find out what is relevant to the people in your space. It is the Wild West in the AI environment right now, and a great opportunity for everyone in every field to be the AI leader in the space by becoming that content curator.
Thank you, Gina. So, David, we'll start with you with this question. How can technology advance, lots of mics flying around, how can technology advance or potentially thwart the work that you're doing in effort to close the equity gap and increase opportunities?
I'm going to start with a short story, if that's okay. In my early years as a school principal was right in the beginning of No Child Left Behind, and I was hired to take over one of the worst performing schools in California, according to test scores, to get out of program improvement, and we did. We were the New England Patriots of standardized testing. Our kids knew strategies, how to narrow it down and make the best guess. And what we saw over time was our test scores rose. We became a Title I achieving school. And what I saw was our kids still going into generational gangs, still getting pregnant in high school, not going on to university. We changed their test scores without changing their outcomes, the theme from almost all the panels today. And then in 2004, when our visionary superintendent asked our principals, who would like to go one-to-one? I was like, what's that? He said, we're going to provide a laptop for every child. This is in 2004. And there's the multicolored Macintosh things that hardly did anything. You guys remember them? And this was before the internet was really good, too. So I raised my hand. And another principal of an affluent school, my school was 100% Title I, 100% English learner. We got our advices at the same time. And for the first time, our teacher said, our kids are brilliant. They're genius. Because the kids from the affluent school up the road, they wanted to be taught. They wanted to learn, how do you do the presentation? How do you do a podcast? Our kids just went after it. As soon as they got their devices, they taught the teachers. So they started with the same basic playing field of having a device, having access with no limitation. So seeing that power is important. And right now our district's partnering with a company called Schooljoy that is personalizing content down to the individual student. So you can learn polynomials using Taylor Swift songs and rugby if that's what you're interested in. And the computer or the computer adaptive program will produce content tailored to the individual kid. Imagine every child has a textbook designed for them. But what's going to happen is that as we're at the beginning of this crevice of generative AI, and we're seeing what personalized tutors, bots that know our students can do, if kids don't have not only access, but their own device and ubiquitous access to Wi-Fi all the time, then the gap is going to widen in terms of equity.
Thank you.
Great point. Great point. And
If I could just add on to that, because it's so important. One of the things that has happened is that gap exists for our institutions because of the underfunding. So let me give you an example. When I first came, I always say, I came to Norfolk State University. I was the president for 8 months, and then I was the president of COVID for 2 years. But I will say that one of the things it did was it shed a great light, laser light, on what are some of our issues. So, for example, when we sent our students home, many of them did not have devices that would be helpful to them to complete their classes. So we had students who were doing their entire classwork on their phones. And they may or may not have had internet. And so they were, finding internet. So we sent devices to them and Wi-Fi's to them and, helped patch that. But what it told me was we had a bigger problem, which was our students were not keeping up with some of the things that they needed to keep up with in terms of just devices that are not about the device, but about the learning, so the tool for the learning. So we decided to go all in and do devices for all of our students and all of our faculty, and to have a learning specialist whose job it is to help them understand how to connect and to learn, use these as tools for learning in the classroom. However, our big issue is our infrastructure. And that means I lived for the first 8 months a 1.3 miles away from the university while they were finishing updating the house. I had perfect internet, 1.3 miles. I come to the university and we have the most unstable internet that you could imagine. So I say to the folks, who were local, I said, "Why is the internet so bad over here?" And they were like, "Oh, we're so sorry, but you're just a little beyond where we put the infrastructure." I had a person from one of the major companies come in. He was a senior vice president, and I said, "We don't have 5G here." He said, "There's a tower right out there." He looks it up. He said, "Right, you don't have 5G." Those kind of things are systemic issues that keep our students from having the best experience and the best opportunities. So this is where I put my energy. This is a piece of what is most important, because they need to be competitive when they go out. They are brilliant, but you can't demonstrate that brilliance if you've not had the opportunity. And going to the AI piece, as they are learning to use the AI and make it work for them, we're also saying the AI is a tool. The focus for the faculty is for the students to have critical thinking. And that can never be replaced. And I don't think AI is trying to replace that. I think they're clear. So those kind of things, getting up to speed, having the support from the state, from the local municipalities, and from the federal government. And now we have a lot of that support. A lot of that is coming in. So it's making a difference, but it's hard to make up for decades of underfunding.
Thank you, Javaune.
Yeah.
Gina, do you want to jump in?
Great points, and just incredibly compelling. And they're so lucky to have you as an advocate, so good job. Chase down those telcos. Now, as we think about the abilities and the tools provided, right? The curriculum piece, AI can absolutely help with that and should help with that. But one of the interesting things it can also help with is just that infrastructure, the personal infrastructure to support and create that scaffolding around the students so that they have the support. There are educational tools that can help them with personal development, study habits, how are you feeling today, emotional and psychological support. AI can do those things. Teachers can set set up information and be able to communicate. You talked about the one-on-one lessons plan. Absolutely something it can do, but beyond just the one-on-one lesson plan, it can also help you have a one-on-one personal relationship. Hey, how are you feeling today, right? And get that going, and they can respond to it, and you can have a dialogue and understand the emotional impacts of what may be going on in those people's lives. So it gives you the opportunity to do what I call mass personalization, and that's just incredible. And there's tools out there. It sounds like you've got a great one in place. Khan Academy has a great one in place for teachers to be able to develop their lesson plans. One-on-one online education, yes, but actually develop your lesson plans. Get creative. Put your favorite artists in them. There's just, the possibilities are infinite, and I get super excited talking about it. So.
I think for us, when you talk about technology, it's critical, and it can actually, it will close the equity gap. I believe that truly. I also think, and we use that at UTEP. Every one of our courses that I offer has technology, and we use it in the classroom. For example, for our math classes, it is mastery-based. Students come in and they start with what they know, and then they build on their content. I would also like to just add that it's the human connection between the faculty and the student where we do find those students who don't have technology, who don't have access to the internet, or they're living in their car, or they're sharing their one computer with 5 other people in the family, right? It's when you build those relationships and students feel like they're in a safe space that they can share the struggles that they go through, and they can share, and then you can help them navigate that. So for me, it's really important for faculty to be there and have that interaction, build those relationships so that students do feel that they matter and what they're going through matters.
No, thank you. And I just want to add to that in terms of how it can help advance, but we also still need those guardrails and best practices and evidence of them being best practices, right? It's not new, but it's sort of new, right? We're still figuring it out. And so our Office of Educational Technology at the Department of Ed, working in concert with practitioners from across the country, I think it was in September or August, everything's time's a blur, we put out an AI, the Future of Teaching and Learning, which pushed out 6 or 7 recommendations on what needs to happen in order for AI to be useful to K-12 and higher ed educators. And also the president back in July pulled together 7 of the large tech companies, including Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, to come together and make commitments on helping us all ensure that as they're creating AI, that it's safe, secure, and trustworthy, whether it's in the education space or whichever other space. And so really getting input from everyone who's using it is gonna, I believe, help make it better. And I'm not an AI expert, so thank you, Carol, for letting me moderate this. I'm learning a lot. But in the education space, our educators, as David, you shared so eloquently, need the know-how also and the guardrails. And it helps, I think, everyone with the student being at the center, as you all are saying. So one question I have before I get to my last one, which is a charge. The last one's a charge to our tech companies. But the one before that is we have this amazing group of people. What are we asking them to do? You can take 10 seconds to think about it, because I know this came out of left field, but I'm sitting here thinking of all the social capital we have, and it'd be a wasted opportunity. So any one of you can jump in first.
I think what I'm looking for is teaming with those who are in the space where there's capital or programming that continues to allow us to level up. One of the things that we do well is we go out and get grants, but we really are still in a, so let me give you an example. We have had 1 capital campaign prior to my getting here in the whole history of the university. So we're having our 2nd capital campaign in 2023 going forward. So when you start to think about that, you know that it's difficult to build your endowment, to build the things that you need for the university when you aren't used to capital campaigns. So I have come from large Division I, R1 public institutions. So the last place I was, we did a $5 billion capital campaign. I know what it means to get that kind of funding or to get significant funding for your institution. So I am looking for partnerships. I'm looking for partners across the board, not just folks to just give us money, although we really did like Mackenzie Scott giving us that money, but for partnerships for ongoing. And let me say one other piece about that. What I know is our students will be much more successful if they all have a paid internship. I'd like to make that a requirement of the university. We're not, and 2 would be better, 4 would be the best. But paid internships turn into job opportunities. We know that 67% of students nationally who have an internship are going to be offered a job. That's 70%. You can't afford not to be in that group. Plus, all of the things that you learn, all of the relationships that you make a difference for those individuals. So I am looking for all of you to say, I've got an internship, or I've got 20, or I've got 50 internships that I'd love to have your students to be a part of. And what we're doing is now preparing them for those internships, which was something that had not been done previously.
Yeah, I think pairing right with that. Oh, do you want to clap? Sorry. Carol wants to clap. Everyone clap. No, pairing on that is the curriculum. It's a yes and, right? And so my ask would be, as you think about your curriculum and if you have influence over curriculum, what we need, what Google wants to hire, they don't have to have 4-year degrees anymore. We need people with AI skills, and what that means is data scientists or people who understand data, but even more importantly, community colleges, they can be and should be teaching prompting. That is the currency of the future. Understanding how to program AI is so critical. All the coding, all the underlaying is going to be performed by AI in the future. So what we need are people who learn and have the experience writing code that is prompting code.
Well, first, I think that our audience is already doing the things I would ask. I think we are literally in a room full of global-minded people. But just ask a show of hands, of a room full of influence and leadership, how many have a personal relationship with your local superintendent? Please raise your hand. That's pretty good. That's really good. The reason I ask that is because education is a risk-averse, change-averse system, and leaders need help moving it. My first meeting was with our city manager 11 years ago when I started in Cajon Valley, and I said, Doug, you oversee the police department, fire, public works, everything taxpayer funded except the school system. If we were yours, what would you have us do? I'd never had someone speak to me like this before. He looked me in the eye. He said, David, you guys need to stop stigmatizing labor. You guys need to stop stigmatizing the most important work in this country. We have the Marines and we have the Navy right here in San Diego. Do you know about the civilian and non-civilian jobs that your kids can have and get college paid for while they're doing it? And the answer was no. And then at the same time, I met with the leader of the San Diego Workforce Partnership, our local labor board, and he produced a report called Opportunity Youth, which Brookings also later released. This kid's age 16 to 24 that are not working and not in school. It was about 1 in 4 back then. It's inching towards half. That's 16 to 24-year-olds not in the system at all, working or going to school. So how do we change the data around that? How do we give dignity to all work? And how do we create pathways that show kids gainful employment starting in the early years? These are conversations that this group here can help local superintendents and school boards have to start measuring different things. Test scores are important, but they're not going to get kids gainfully employed.
Thank you for bringing that up. And Denise?
So I have a budget. My budget has been the same since 2007. So I have to do more with the same amount of money. And it's stipulated how I can use the money. So I can't just offer different programming aspects to students because the budget won't let me. It wouldn't get approved. So one of the things that we have, if I were to ask, is that really pay attention. Yeah, there's curriculum, there's pedagogy, but there's a whole host of things that we need to do to serve our students that are outside the realm of the classroom. And for example, we have a student population at UTEP called the START students. UTEP is an R1 institution and open access. We pretty much have 100% admission. But we do have students that come in that are provisionally admitted because they don't have the GPA, they don't have the score to actually get admitted. They are at extremely high risk of not being there the next semester. Their success rates are actually quite low. So if we could offer them to live in the dorm, provide them with mentors, an individual mentor for every single one of them, to build that cohort, that family of students where they're all struggling together to go through this, that to me would be a beautiful thing, because then we're serving the students that struggle the most. We're serving them by giving them the support and tools that they need outside of the classroom.
And share what we're doing with Dr. Turbino, because the PhD project is here.
Oh, yes, we do. I do, yes. Yes, so we are working and partnering with GlobalMindED, and I teach the first-year seminar course, and that's what we offer, and we are 50% first generation. So we have set up some of our first-year seminar courses that are specifically for first generation, and everyone involved with the program is first generation. So the peer mentor, the instructor, the advisor, everyone that's touching this course is a first generation, or was first generation. We are partnering with GlobalMindED for a couple of those sections. We're growing it, right? We're partnering with them, and Dr. Laura Trevino is one of the faculty teaching it with GlobalMindED so that the students have that mentor. And I was just telling Penfield over there, I think it was, that one of the beauties of it is truly that students from El Paso, who typically never get outside of El Paso, get a view of the outside world and get a view of how, that when I talk to you and you're in Colorado, you're very similar to me. You've been through similar experiences in New Jersey. And for them to have the confidence to speak to the mentor and to grow that over the course of the semester is one of the most beautiful things I've seen.
And they're being graded.
Yes, it's part of the course. It's part of the course curriculum.
We're going to do that with you.
And so all of the mentorship and them joining the calls, it is part of the course, it is part of the curriculum, it is part of their grading policy.
And one more little tiny thing, I know we're going off, but let's have Celeste stand up, because she and also run that whole
Celeste was
all of our
so important.
No, that was great. Thank you. It was super helpful and illustrative. So the final question I have, and you can, Gina, recuse yourself from this question if you would like, is what advice or what do you think the tech giants need to know based on the work that y'all are doing and what your students and faculty and teachers are experiencing?
I'll go first. I would say that education moves at a snail's pace. So I think one of the things I would want them to know is that, as Dr. Weaver said earlier, we have to help our faculty learn how to utilize AI in the classroom while still helping students learn to think critically. We have a student body now that some of them, they want to go get an answer and they just want to get it really quickly and they want to give the answer in, and they haven't thought through the process. So to me, one of the most critical things for us is to ensure that we incorporate it into the curriculum in such a way that the students have to think critically and be able to process and solve a problem step by step. I'm a math background. I'm a step-by-step kind of person. So I want to make sure that as we do that, students can still think critically. And that goes to giving the right professional development to our educators. To me, faculty are critical to having us be able to use this technology correctly. And it matters who's in the classroom. You have to be purposeful about who you hire, who is in the classroom, and what their philosophy is about working with students. So incorporating that, I think it does, really, it's going to start with educating the educators.
I think we need the tech giants to help us advocate for infrastructure that works for everyone in the country. You go to rural areas, you go to cities, and there's inequity, significant inequity. And I think that the companies have a lot of power and could utilize that power to level the playing field, because, you know, us trying to do it one-off is tough. We get some traction, but, you know, they could come in and say, look, this has to happen because this is our future. These people are the people who are going to be in our workforce, and we want them well prepared. I think there's nothing bigger right now than infrastructure in this nation. We have to level the playing field.
I think similarly to what you just said, what I would share with our local tech giant CEOs is one, utilize your corporate social responsibility and your foundations to partner with your local school districts to build the talent pipeline that you need for yourself. Stop using H-1B visas and importing talent from around the world. It's just, I understand the need, but if we don't change the way we structure career development, then we're not going to have the skills that we need in our workforce. The second thing is all the systems that you talked about at Google, at Microsoft, all the companies, they have incredible data systems. Healthcare has data systems that when you get your personalized healthcare report, you know everything about yourselves. Education does not have a data system like that. And with what we can do now with data and generative AI, until we start measuring the things that matter, imagine a report card. Your teacher talks about your child. This is where they are in happiness, self-esteem, self-awareness. These are their strengths, interests, and values. These are the relationships that we're seeing, and this is the skills that we need to help them with to build stronger relationships. This is where your child's vocational identity seems to point to. So if you're thinking about post-secondary investments, these are some areas that you should talk to your child about. Imagine if parent conferences were like that. But as long as we have a current accountability system measuring standardized test scores, that's not going to change. So the corporate giants who have already built these data systems to understand their consumers, their patients, their partners, those technologies already exist to be applied to personalized education. And so I would ask our tech giants to step forward, and I'll just give a plug to Chan Zuckerberg. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative gave us $1.2 million to help build a data system to measure happiness, well-being, connectedness, and vocational identity. $1.2 million is not enough, so if there are other funders that are interested, we would love to talk to you after the conference.
Good one, David. And Gina.
No, that's great. And I was taking copious notes, so I'll take all that back to leadership and talk to Sundar. The one thing I'll also add into that mix, I can't stress enough what Denise said about the critical thinking. So important to make sure students are still getting that. I think across our country holistically, we were talking about it earlier, just the concerns. It scares me at my core, the lack of critical thinking skills being developed among students. So please, please, please keep that up. The other thing is there's an AI education project that's trained over 7,000 teachers. It's Google, it's Oracle, it's OpenAI all together. So those kind of curriculums are out there. The other thing that's also available if you're is the Search Generative Experience, SGE, and that's for teens, 13 to 17, with all the security and all of that for if you're in that level of education to be able to help start teaching them about what AI tools they can use and how to do it in a safe environment. So just a couple.
Thank you so much, Gina. And thank you to our amazing panelists for your passion and your commitment and always keeping our young people at the center. Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And we're going to have a little break until the top of the hour. So for socializing and saying hello to these folks and meeting the people at your new tables. And there's also drinks in the back if you need a little bit of caffeine shot.